Hey everyone, welcome back to another Tic-Tac Taiko. There are 3 different ways you can play any given pattern, and it all depends on where your ands are. Not your hands, but your ands. Of course you don't know what I'm talking about, so come with me and I'll show you. For most of my videos, I start by explaining the concept and breaking things down, but this time, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about first. Here we see side by side the 3 different ways you can play a pattern. Can you spot the difference? Maybe you're able to see something pretty easily, or maybe you can tell that there's something different but you're not quite able to articulate it. No worries. I'm going to slow things down and break things down for you. Before I show you the slow versions, let me bring up this idea of your ands. Again, not your hands, ands. When you count a pattern, 1, 2, 3, the halfway point would be the and. 1, and 2, and 3, and. We all know how to do this pretty instinctively. The and is the halfway point between one note and the next. I'm going to show you all 3 again, side by side at a much slower tempo, about half speed. And I want you to pay attention to where the and is for each of those 3. All right, let's break down what exactly is going on. I call the middle one balance. If you're noting the and, you can tell that the next hand to strike lifts up on the and, strikes on the 1, and the next hand to strike lifts up on the and strikes on the 1, and this repeats. This is very balanced because the hands are either moving on the 1 or on the and, halfway. The example on the left, I call the bounce. You'll note that when one hand strikes, the other hand essentially bounces up like you're playing on something like a trampoline. And if you note where the and is when the bounce starts to come down to strike. And finally, on the right, we have the delay. One hand comes down, and then nothing happens until the last second when the next striking hand lifts up and comes down pretty quickly. If you take note of the and here, you'll see that nothing happens at all. The and does not have a purpose in the delay. Rather than me adding more time to my video and replaying the original tempo, I strongly suggest going back to that part of the video, armed with the knowledge you have now of the differences, and see what you see at a faster tempo. And before I get into the advantages and disadvantages, my preference, what I like, I also strongly suggest that you try just playing a straight beat at maybe a moderate tempo, whatever that is, with the and in mind, just to know what you do, where your hand is on the and. Then try all 3 of those versions, the bounce, the balance, and the delay. See what feels more natural. Which camp are you more likely to be in already? See what doesn't feel natural, and see if maybe one of those actually feels better than the default way that you play. As for me, I tend to be balanced. I like the feel. It's very natural. Doesn't necessarily mean it's always the best option, but that's my default. The bounce is really good for fast tempos, not so good for the slow tempos. I find that when I am doing a bounce at a slow tempo, my hands just kind of feel like they're waiting for the and to happen. There's no point of reference. And when it's really slow, unless I'm doing some kind of deliberate arm motion that fills the gap, it can feel very awkward. Whereas the delay is really good at slow tempos, especially if you're not trying to draw attention to yourself. But at faster tempos, it's almost impossible, and you wind up being forced more towards the balance side of things anyways. In addition to tempo being a huge factor in which will feel more comfortable, the pattern you're playing also has a big role as well. Take dongo, for example, and let me put up a side-by-side comparison of the bounce versus the balance. I'm not even going to put the delay up because the delay is almost impossible to play unless it's a super slow tempo. Take a look at the bounce version of dongo. It looks airy and effortless and fun and buoyant and all those happy words. Whereas the balance version, I don't know if you can see it in my body and on my face, this was not fun to play. I felt constrained and burdened, and this would only be good as an exercise, but I would never ever want to play dongo with balance, let alone try it with the delay. So this is a case where bounce will serve you better than one of the other patterns. Let's also take a look at Doro Tsuku, loud, loud, soft, soft. A lot of beginning taiko players want to bounce their hits, but there's a problem when you come to Doro Tsuku. Loud, loud. Well, I've got a third hit that's supposed to be soft, but that bounce has brought my bachi up high. That's going to be difficult. What's more difficult than a regular bounce would be sort of a different bounce per hit. One big bounce, one little bounce. The body wants to be symmetrical. So if you tell a player, big bounce, small bounce, it's going to be really difficult. What's a lot easier is to do bounce and then either balance or delay, because it's not a different kind of bounce. It's a completely different technique and it's easier to differentiate. Given that, what would you do for the tsuku? What do you do for the tsuku? And what do you do for the next don that's coming up? And how would you teach that to someone else using the bounce, balance, and delay techniques that are available? If you watch my videos in the past, you know how important awareness is to me. You can get better without knowing what it is you're doing exactly. You will absorb new information and get better up to a point, and then without awareness, you will not get better. And this will be extremely frustrating if you haven't learned those tools along the way. Knowing what you're doing, knowing how to change it, not only makes you a better performer, it also makes you a better teacher. You can't teach if you don't know what you're doing. And eventually, almost all of us wind up teaching, at least in some ways. So having awareness about something like this, which you've probably never thought about, will only benefit you in the long run. So if you found this video useful, enlightening, entertaining, let me know by giving a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, that button's down there. It's just waiting for you to click. And until next time, keep on practicing and be well.